Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining part 2 of our webinar, How to Get a Bank to Give You the Money You Need for Growth. My name is Andrea Frost, and I'm your moderator today. I work on the communications team here at the Capital Masters, and I'm excited to be hosting the second session for the Hello Alice community. We've got two incredible panelists coming up again today. Bob Hernandez is the Treasury Credit and Finance Wizard here at the Capital Masters. Over the course of his career, Bob has analyzed and contributed to the closing of approximately $400 million in small business loans. Rich Resikoff is the acclaimed author of How to Make Banks Compete to Loan You Money, the definitive guide to creating a dynamic narrative and top-notch business plan that gives banks what they need to say yes. Together, this top-notch team is going to cover a variety of options and strategies for unlocking the capital your business needs to grow. Before I hand the mic over to our two experts, though, I have a couple of housekeeping items to cover. First, today's webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on demand after the live session. Once the webinar is concluded, we'll also email you a link so that you can access the recording. In addition, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you have a question for our speakers, please feel free to send it through the Q&A tab at the bottom of your viewing window. We'll save the questions for the end of the session, and if for some reason we don't get to yours during the webinar, we'll be sure to follow up afterward. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand things over to Rich and Bob.
Well, thank you. And let's bring up the first slide. So as we mentioned yesterday, it says how to get banks to give you the money. Well, truth in advertising, banks are not going to give you the money. What they will do is they will loan it to you if they believe you're going to be able to pay it back. Bob, anything else you want to say on this before we get into the program?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, the three things that banks look for, at least from when I was a lowly credit analyst, was is the bank going to get repaid? Then the second one was, how is the bank going to be repaid? And the third was, how is the bank going to be repaid?
Gosh, Bob, how will I remember that? That's so complex.
Pretty tough.
I think I got one of them. Was it, will the bank be repaid?
That's close.
Okay.
How?
So let's move on to our program. So in these times, as we talked about yesterday, it's critically important to put together an impressive loan application. And by loan application, we don't mean how pretty your handwriting is when you fill out the bank forms that they give you. We're talking about a lot more that shows the spirit of who you are, what you're asking for, why you're asking for it, and again, why you're a good bet for the bank to repay. Bob, what's the first thing you look for when a client gives you their information?
Well, after I take their pulse, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them a question regarding, why are you here? Tell me about your project and tell me a little bit about yourself.
I would say, Bob, it sounds like you're dating yourself. These days you take the temperature first, not the pulse.
Yeah, that was pre-COVID.
Yes. So I want to go a little deeper in this. The first business I had was on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And I went to my local banker and he said, I liked your story. What do you have for collateral? And I said, what's collateral? And he explained what collateral was. And I said, I don't have much. I have $3,000 worth of inventory from the year before. He said, well, we couldn't do it under those circumstances, but there's this new program called SBA. And we may be able to do that and get an SBA guaranteed loan for you. So I called SBA and said, what is it that you need so that I make sure I give it to you? And the SBA office, this was in North Carolina. I was on the Outer Banks. This was in Greenville. He said, please, at the very least, just fill out all the paperwork. So many people get started in the process and don't. So I decided not only was I going to fill out the paperwork, but I was going to give them a total package explaining our business, our customer base, the demographics, why what we were doing was trending, and what we were doing by way of bringing in other craftsmen to make us a destination on the Outer Banks, what we projected our financials would be. And when we turned in the package, the SBA office said, can we use this as a template? Because this way we get what we want and the bank gets what they need to be able to say yes. Bob, what else would you like to add to that?
Yeah, that's how it was back then. Today, it's all standardized. Banks are generally making the decision, not the SBA. The SBA is used pretty much as a rubber stamp and to get a number to allow closing. But all of those items, the business plan, the demographics, management resumes, personal financial statements, tax returns, all of that is required today.
And there are a few others. Almost every day, Bob, you share something with me, that information you get from SBA that kind of changes the game a little bit. For example, if you were not profitable in 2019, what did they tell you, Bob?
Yeah, right now, if you didn't show profit in 2019, your loan application is going to be set aside. It's not going to pass go.
So the way around that, and this is not a workaround, the numbers speak for themselves, but if you were to do an EBITDA and take out the non-cash items in there, you may be able to show profitability. And if you take your salary to the bottom line, you may be able to show profitability. So that's all part of putting the right loan application together. What would you add to that, Bob?
I would add that if you're going to do something like that, which in technical terms we call a recast, you should really know what you're doing before you chance that, because the bank's already done it. If they're looking at your financials, they've already run an EBITDA calculation, because that's the basic cash flow calculation that they all perform. So if you're going to do a recast, have your ducks in the row and be able to explain it, your logic, your reasoning, and have facts to support it.
And we'll be doing other programs. We'll be showing people how to do recasts. When I first brought recasts to the bank, and when I started doing loan packages for clients, I said, well, how do you feel about us doing that? And they said, thank you for doing our work. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to check it and see that it's tried and true. But if you do that, it gives you the opportunity to say, yes, we were profitable, rather than for the bank to assume you're not. Let's go on to the next slide. One of the things we do when we do a loan package is we start with the credit analysis. And that's what Bob does. And it takes a lot of time, and it is the most important thing to know if you're even in the ballpark. Bob, you'll spend hours and hours doing a credit analysis. What is it? What do you need? What are you crunching? And why is it invaluable for the banks, for you to know this going in? And obviously they're going to do their own credit analysis.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, basically, the main reason I do it is because I want to make sure that we have a loan that has a really good chance of getting approved. And being that I have a reputation out there, and most of the banks I go to know me personally, and from a business standpoint, they're assuming that I am vetting these deals before I present to them, unlike a lot of brokers which just throw spaghetti to the wall to see if it sticks. So I will look at tax returns, personal financial statements, credit reports, bank statements, and I don't just look at them, I get deep into them. There are things within the tax returns that you learn as a credit analyst that you can identify that are not on the first 2 pages that'll tell you whether there's draws or distributions or other things that may be happening, or even red flags. So I get pretty deep into the financials.
So let's start with that one, Bob. Tax returns and what's not on the first 2 pages, that as you go through it, you'll see things that are red flags. Can you give examples of that? And in any of the credit analysis we've done so far for the clients we work with together, have you seen red flags just on the tax returns?
Yeah, I'll notice something on almost every deal we see, because the client's going to give you the best picture in their mind of what they look like. And for example, one client was saying, well, we don't take any draws. And you can see on our tax returns, there's no draws. Well, I go to the M1 and the M2 reconciling sections of retained earnings, and I see a $189,000 draw. They took a draw. So I have to use that and input it into my spreadsheet analysis. That's one example.
So with an example like that, do you think the client was trying to snow you, or they didn't know what they didn't know?
Yes and no. Yeah, so, client. Sometimes with clients, you really have to pull teeth to get the answers you need. But with me, I'm kind of, Rich and I are polar opposites in the way we deal with people. I'm more of the no tact, hit them over the head and get what I need. He's more finesse, but we both get the goal done at the end of the day. And I will tell them on the front end, you really need to tell me and show me everything that you have so I can present you in the best possible light, because I'm going to be your advocate going to the bank. I'm not the bank. I've worked in the bank, but I'm your advocate. I'm your bodyguard for this deal.
So basically, what you guys need to know is that when you do a credit analysis, or if you turn it over to someone with Bob's expertise, they're going to find the red flags. They're going to see what might be a workaround for something that works against you, but not necessarily something that will mean you can't do a deal. But that takes expertise, and that's the first step. Anything else you want to add to that, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the bank wants to do the deal because they'll make money on your loan, whether they keep it or sell it, or get an origination fee. But the credit officer in the back office, he starts with the word no. So how do you convert that no to a yes? And that's what I try to do on the front end, is I try to identify as many of the pitfalls, as it were, that I can find and mitigate them, which is meaning to say maybe have an offsetting strength to that inherent weakness, to where the strengths outweigh the weaknesses at the end of the day and you have an approved deal.
So Bob, what would you share with our audience today are the top 3 things that need to be done by way of a credit analysis, whether you were to do it or they would do it? And I know it's more expansive than that, but I just want you to identify what you think are the most important things as a starter.
I mean, the obvious things are, do you have stable historical trends? Are your revenues, your sales, are they going up, or are they going off a cliff? Is your cash flow, which is EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, that's the cash flow, is it sufficient enough at a given multiple to support the debt that you're requesting? And between those 2 things, that hits a lot of the bases. I guess the other thing would be, as a guarantor, are you strong enough to weather a storm here in case something happens to the company? Do you have enough reserves to pay your bills as well as maybe, let's say, 10% of the project cost in a loan?
So this is table stakes. Part of your package should be to address these things, know where you stand, and if it's good, strut your stuff. Let's talk about the right kind of debt, because that's an open-ended question. And the right kind of debt is a little bit tricky, but it basically means, should you be going after a line of credit? Should you be going after a term loan? What are the areas of debt that should be considered, Bob, when you make the decision of how to present your package and to know what you really are looking for and what the bank can say yes, or any other lender if it's not a bank?
Well, it depends what the use of funds is. And that's, I know that we've, discussed that within our own client base, where I go into our white glove packages and construct a sources and uses of funds. How you're going to use the money dictates and determines what kind of debt you should be going for. If you're trying to support inventory and receivables, then that's probably a line of credit or an asset-based line. If you're looking to buy another business, expand your business, or refinance debt, and you're a small business, that's probably an SBA 7A loan. If you're looking to build a building where you've been renting in the past, then maybe that's a 504 loan with the SBA. If you're looking to invest and maybe construct some buildings and lease them out to, say, doctors or lawyers or other business people, then maybe that's an investor loan. So the use of the money really is going to determine, what you're going to be looking for.
Well, I'm working with someone on the West Coast who's looking to buy a cannabis business. And when I shared this with Bob, he said, because cannabis is not legal federally, an SBA can't do that loan, even though it's legal in Los Angeles.
Correct. From a federal standpoint, it hasn't been made legal nationally.
So you have to look for investors for a loan like that. And there are some cases, like Bob pointed out, that we talked about yesterday, where there's real estate involved. The 504 may absolutely be the best program for you. And we're back to being smart and savvy about your debt. In my first business, I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was I kept looking for banks to expand my line of credit in a seasonal business. And what I needed was another term loan to actually do the things I needed to grow the business. But I didn't have the expertise then. I didn't know how to ask for it. And the bank didn't share that with me. Anything else you want to share on this slide, Bob, before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, finally today, if everything looks good on as far as what you're bringing into the bank, your presentation, your business plan, most bankers today will say, hey, that kind of loan that you're going for doesn't really fit. Let's look at this one and see. It might be more appropriate to what you're doing. So bankers these days are counselors in some fashion as far as what type of debt you should have.
Yeah, and the best ones are do consultative relationship selling, and that gets to not just what kind of debt, but who do you want the debt from, and that's talking to peers, as we said yesterday, and getting information about what loan officers really invest in you and give you the best advice to grow your business. I think we're ready for the next slide. So Bob, this is such a key area. A top-notch business plan, and I want to jump to the verifiable projections and assumptions, because I can say we're going to grow $1 million next year. And if I don't have verifiable projections and the assumptions that go with it, I'm just blowing smoke.
That's correct. You need to prove everything that you say to a credit officer, maybe to the business development or relationship manager on the front end as well. But the way that we tackle our projects is with that credit officer in mind. We think with our presentation skills and the package, we can get past the first individual, but you really need to be able to prove, substantiate, back up, show facts for everything that you have in your plan. And maybe even have alternative plans, best case, base case, worst case.
And we're not just talking about the financial section here. For example, if you're in the industry section and you say industry trends are that to grow 6% a year, you better show where you got that information. And that's all part of having the right assumptions to back up what you say. Bob, what do you see that are common mistakes, and what do you see that makes the loan officer hum because you've given them the information and then they can do their research to substantiate it?
Well, I don't know if they hum. Sometimes they burp or belch, but one of the things that I see, for example, say you're doing a restaurant deal, franchise, and you make a statement in your presentation that our restaurant or our franchise is, has the best tasting hamburgers and the coldest, beer in the United States. Okay, so what? Who says that? Well, we say it. Sorry, we're not even going to go. Okay, go to something else. If you have a statement, for example, that the Atlanta Business Journal rated you as a 5-star restaurant or had the best beer and ambiance and burgers in the city, in Peachtree Town or whatever, or Zagat has rated you as the best classic burger place. That's verifiable. That's fact-based. You can get articles and pull it in. Something else, and I see this continually on franchise deals. When I'm, as I call it, I'm grading their homework, which means I'm taking a red pen to their business plan, is they'll make a comment, we're unique. We have 50 craft beers. We don't have any competition. I pull up a Google map, and within 3 miles, I find 25 bars and restaurants that serve beer. You have competition. So those are just 2 examples.
I like the second one because it's something that both of us harp on. If you're selling steaks and you're the only game in town that sells a $50 steak, it doesn't mean you don't have competition, because I can take that money and I can go to an Indian restaurant, I can go to a Chinese restaurant, I can go to Jimmy John's and spend $10. You have always competition, and it's almost, if you make a statement like that and don't show what your competition is and put your competitors in your package, you're showing either naivety or arrogance. And that's a red flag that you might not even think would be there, and it's working against you.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And in the terminology, we call those generators. And you want to have generators around you. If you're opening up a sports bar, and there's a Chili's near you, there's an Applebee's, there's 10 others. Those are choices for people, and we call those generators. And the other mistake that's made is people applying for loans don't know what their competition's doing, and they don't articulate it. You can obtain that information through social media or other sources. So that's another big one.
We're doing a package now for a company that's in the audiovisual industry. And we put in the package a case study. And it's a case study of that company doing everything audio visual for a major arena for the University of Houston and for the football field across the street. And we were able to show what they did, develop the software, they purchased the right equipment, they put it in, they worked this project for Turner Construction, which is one of the top construction companies in the Texas area. And by the time we had it all in there with pictures and with testimonials, that and that alone will show the depth of what this company can do and why this little company won out over everybody else, because they really had, from A to Z, they were to do everything that was necessary, including to be there and go back and do maintenance.
And also take your, when you're doing your projections and assumptions, equate them to the demographics in the area, because that can support how much you're paying employees. Some of those reports are so detailed, it'll give you information on utilities and cost of services, rents. So that's an easy way, and you can buy demographic reports anywhere from 150, $300, $400, $500, depending on the size, and it's money well spent to be able to prove your case.
One of the things we're going to be offering is a template on A to Z, the questions you need to ask for every phase of the loan package to cover what you're doing. And we're going to be offering that with a workbook so that you can fill that in. I don't think it's out yet till October 1st, but if we have your information, we'll get back to you on it. And that's something you can either do on your own, or you can bring us in to help you do it on a couple stages. But at the very least, know what a top-notch business plan looks like, and you're way ahead of the game if you deliver. I think we can move on to the next slide. When Bob and I first started working together, Bob told us about a company called IBIS. And IBIS generates industry reports for virtually every industry, and they continually update them. And Bob said, why don't we subscribe to this and add that to our packages? Why is that important, Bob? And how does that give you credibility? And what is it a bank will do by way of an industry analysis?
Well, one of the things is they're going to use that industry analysis to verify your projections. You know, this isn't the bank's first loan in your arena, unless you're, you know, doing something with messenger RNA and COVID. Or robotics, something out there, but they've done these deals before. They know your industry, they know your metrics. They're going to peg your numbers, whether they're historical, whether they're projected against like businesses of size, and they're going to go to their tables and determine, you know, how you fit in that mix. Plus, it'll also give them tactical reports on how the industry is overall doing. They might not want to lend to that industry if it's a dying industry, if it's at the end of its life cycle, or if there's some extreme issues going on. For example, Blockbuster, they were still trying to expand, and tapes were out, streaming was in. You don't want to lend to a Blockbuster. Some of y'all might be too young to remember that, but that's just one issue or one example.
So, Bob, if the bank's going to do it anyway, why should I have an industry section in it and do it in advance?
Shows forethought. It shows that you're really taking this seriously. And by the way, I might add, the way you present to a bank whether it's you in person, on a Zoom call, your package, the data within it, the way it's constructed, the way it's written, the narratives, they're going to assume that that's how you run your business. So if you're coming in there with a full-blown industry write-up on your particular niche, that's going to bode well for you. Plus, it might save the credit analyst a little bit of time if he has 20 loans sitting on his desk, or her, and you already have a detailed industry write-up to give them.
And the more you give them, the faster your loan package is likely to move through the process, simply because it's there, it's comprehensive, it has all the information, and you'll get a response back sooner. Now, we may have mentioned this yesterday, but if you were to say, I want a loan for a restaurant today, on the surface, that may sound like, oh my goodness, why would a bank loan to a restaurant? However, if what they're serving is pizza, and we went into this in detail yesterday, now that's what people are ordering out and getting, and it's easy and it's simple for delivery. And if your performance is above the industry averages because you've got this information, you are really helping the banker say yes.
It's true.
So go ahead, Bob.
No, that was it.
Okay, so this is critically important in today's time. And this is one of the things SBA is asking for. And again, as Bob said, you're writing this so the bank is comfortable presenting it to SBA. So let's talk about what a COVID end of the year action plan means and what it should look like.
Yeah. And let me make one, I guess, enhancement to that. The banks aren't presenting to the SBA. Today, banks are what are called preferred lenders. They're PLP, which means they decision on behalf of the SBA, and once a year they're audited to make sure that they're following policies and procedures. So unless you have a really archaic bank or a small one, they're going to decision your loan. And at the end of the day, there's a 24 to 48 hour, 72 at the most period to obtain a number that allows them to go ahead and move into the closing arena.
What do we mean by a number, Bob?
An authorization number.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like your license plate number, but the bank will decision the deal, not the SBA. For COVID, one of the requirements from all the commercial credit officers I've been talking to is that in order to get these deals approved, the bank needs to know at a granular level, which I mean deep, you know, how COVID has affected your business since March to date, what it looks like the environment will be as a result through the end of the year, and then do you have a plan for, say, 12 to 18 months after that? They want to know that you're not losing clients, you're not going down, you're not shutting off, that you know, maybe you missed a sales cycle or two, as with one of our clients, but you didn't lose a customer, they're still paying you. You know, maybe your customers are paying you slow. They want to know how it's affected you. Or did you lose all your staff and you're now having to ramp up and you're not profitable at all? Did you save some money in the bank? Did you go for PPP money or disaster loans? They want to know the whole ball of wax.
So part of this is almost like an Oreo cookie. And the first piece of chocolate is pre-COVID. How well have you done 2018, 2019? The cream in the middle is how are you dealing with COVID? And then you want to plan for when COVID ends. When I first started working with clients, before Bob and I got together, I assumed that by the end of the year, COVID would be over. And we could say, this is post-COVID. But One of the reasons that banks right now are so reluctant, and I keep hearing this from Bob, and one bank rejected one of our clients where other banks accepted them, was because we just don't know what we don't know in this environment.
You have to really be able to tell your story and not be arrogant, but be assertive and confident.
Yeah, and you can say this will end or it will turn around. And one of our clients right now has struggled because of COVID in a major profit center for them. However, in November and December, they should do very well because corporations are saying, we're going to bring our people back to work in January. November and December is when they do budgets. So they're gearing up for November and December to sell their products for the next year with budgets, with the assumptions that people will be coming back to work. So there's where you get quotes, you say what's going on, the nature of your industry, why November and December should be a very good 2 months for you and position you for the next year. And that's putting together a real plan with assumptions behind it and historical information to show 2019, 2018, 2017, your corporate clients, your government clients are doing budgets. And that gives you a shot at being considered realistic. Anything you want to add to that, Bob?
No, that I think you covered it well.
Okay, I'll remind you of that one day, Bob. Let's go to the next slide. The key word here is you, because what might be an appropriate bank for one company is not for another. For example, if you're a $75 million or $150 million company, a bank like Chase or Bank America, with all the services they add, particularly if you're international, may be the best bank for you to go to. But they may not even let you in the door if you're doing under $2.5 million. So Bob, as we go through finding the right banks for the clients we're working with, you make a list of the banks you think could say yes and the banks you think you could say no for this specific client. What are the things you're looking for? And of course, you have the advantage of the history of the bank and the lenders.
Yeah, I'm really looking at what I call the balance sheet of the bank. And you can think of what that bank likes to eat. You know, some banks are really health conscious and they only eat salads. You know, some banks are eating steaks and baked potatoes. So with the banks that I work with, I know on the front end, you know, what their tolerances are, what industries they like, what industries they don't like. I know what metrics they like to see. And I know the back office. I know how fast they are, how slow they are, their due diligence processes, and whether or not they're able to, you know, close on a loan. So I look at all of that and try to match the deal with our client to that particular bank.
Okay, so Bob, you have 34 years, 37 years of experience, and you have an incredible network. I don't. How do I find the right bank for me?
Now, generally, Rich, you write me a check.
Okay, Bob.
No, I mean, yeah, seriously, folks, you know, I don't have my Groucho Marx cigar here, but what you can do is, you know, talk to other business owners in your networking group. If you're in a networking group, if you're not, you need to be. You know, talk to other bankers that you may know. Go to bankrate.com, go to the SBA.gov. There's a lot of ways to find out who's doing what. If you're a member of LinkedIn, you go in there and make some queries. But mind you, bankers, a lot of the bankers are sales guys and gals, and they're going to be coming at you like sharks, whether they can do your deal or not, which is could be the overpromise, underdeliver mantra. But there's a lot of ways you can find out, what's going on at that bank. Are they under a merger? Are they a healthy bank? Are they like maybe, one of the big 4 money center banks where they really didn't do some of the things right during PPP and they're getting sued right and left? So I would take time to really, perform your due diligence and find a bank that you may think might be a good fit for you.
Yeah, it's almost like finding a hospital for a baby. You want the right doctor, you want the right hospital, and you'll do a little homework, hopefully. Same thing applies here. The information is out there. But we're looking at what's the appetite for your industry, what's the appetite for the size of the loan. You're looking for factors like how aggressive are they, how big is their business development department, what's in their portfolio, and those are just some of the key things that you want to know before you make your ultimate decision on a bank to go with. And then you get into the other questions. Are they healthy? Are they in that merger like Bob says? Because those things may eliminate a bank and they won't tell you. That's why I said this yesterday, but I believe that it's worth repeating. Because one bank says no does not mean that it's a no. Do your homework, shop. And I just want to ask you, Bob, what I have found is that for the small business community, community banks are major players, and they may be overlooked for names like Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Chase. What are you seeing, Bob?
Yeah, a lot of the community banks will have bankers that are, let's say they're, I guess, more generic. They look at everything, and they might not have the asset size, meaning that banks are only allowed to lend based on how much they have in deposits and assets. So you go to a small community bank that's 300 million in size, they might only be able to handle loans up to $1 million and no more. But, you're going to get what I would call, old school hometown service. You're going to know your bank officer. You're going to know the people in the lobby. You're going to know the tellers. You're going to get, overall, good personalized service, as opposed to going to one of the bigger banks where they don't care who you are. Their analysis might be algorithm based, and you're just another number.
So, Bob, you brought up another idea that I haven't thought about in quite a while. I've actually done deals where banks co-brokered the deal. Why would that happen? And are there red flags with that, or is that a good thing?
No, there's no red flags with that. It's actually technically called a participation. For the larger banks do it all the time. I was involved with many of them when I was vice president of finance for Schlotsky's. We had a syndicated loan between Texas Capital, Wells Fargo, and Comerica that was a $15 million line to support our national advertising. But when small banks do it, their asset size is not big enough to carry that loan on their books. So they do what's called a participation, and they bring another bank in there to share the risk. The fancy term is pari passu. They're both on an equal footing, but they will share the risk of that loan, each have a piece of it, and the initial bank will probably be the servicer.
So how do you find out if a bank will do that?
That's really some deep knowledge. I don't suspect that most business owners are going to be running into that situation.
All right. Next question. So let's take Q&A right now. Andrea, what do we have?
And we've got some really, really good questions here. Here's one to start off with. What's the best way to evaluate a bank's financial health and general reputation, as well as the types of businesses they lend to?
Bob, I'll let you start with that.
Is that all they asked? That's, I mean, I would go to bankrate.com. And another easy way, if you're looking at an SBA loan, is to call your regional SBA office. And every SBA office has a lender liaison that works with all the banks directly on behalf of the SBA in that region. For example, I'm in the Austin, Texas area. Our lender liaison is in San Antonio at the San Antonio SBA office. I could call her and get tactical information on a bank. Hey, generic state bank in generic Texas, how are they doing? Are their SBA loans all in good standing? Are they, who are they lending to? What industries? That's one way to get that information. If you're a financial individual with some accounting and finance background, then you might go to some of the subscription services or even go pull a Dun & Bradstreet. I think there was a service we used to use in the old days, and I think the gentleman too, Rich, Hoovers. Hoovers used to analyze and rate a lot of banks in addition to other businesses. So there's ways you can determine the health of a bank without going into their financials. And I might add too, for the larger banks that have to file 10Ks and 8Ks and SEC required information, you can get those reports through Freedom of Information Acts, access them and run your own calculations.
So two things I want to add to that. One is by October 1st, we're going to be putting on our website the 8 questions you should ask the bank. And a couple of those things are, what is the health of the bank? The other thing I would invite you to do is, if you've never done it, the bank you're working with, go to it's bankrate.com or bank.com, Bob?
Bankrate.
And check them out, see what you learn about them. You might be surprised, but talk to your peers. I'd recommend you talk to somebody where a bank called a loan and find out what happened, or when someone went out of covenant and how the bank dealt with that. Let's go on to the next question.
Okay, here's one. Could you please speak to equipment loans and getting that kind of support to expand? In the sense, we don't yet make the kind of revenue that the new equipment would enable us to make. So how do we show that we can justify the loan?
That's a classic SBA scenario. It's going to be projection based. So you're going to have whoever your financial person is, or if you're having to bring in a consultant, work with you to determine where you want to be over the next 3 to 5 years, and how much, perform an actual operational analysis depending on the level of sales that you anticipate, how much equipment is that going to be, and then run a several business case scenarios and turn that into a business plan and determine how you can operationalize that. And then from there, the SBA will do equipment loans from 7 to 10 years based on 50% of the value of the equipment. And that's a route you can consider.
And that's a good route. And if you're going to get 50% of the value of the equipment, I did one a while ago with a company that was automating. They needed $300,000 worth of equipment from Germany. We made the case about how this was going to enable us to do more production in an hour than we could in a week. The bank took the deal, the SBA took the deal, and this guy is fully operational now. Next question, Andrea.
Yeah, we've got another one here. Would you recommend a USDA business and industry loan over the SBA 7A or 504 to construct a business in the, and it says county, and I'm not sure if they meant county or country, but.
Yeah, USDA is what I would call the 7A program on steroids. USDA program, and I've done several of those USDA loans in my time. You have to be in a population that's 50,000 or less to qualify, and it cannot be near a major metropolitan city. And the beauty of the USDA loan is you get a 30-year term on the loan as opposed to a 20 with a 504 or a 25 with a 7A. And you get a very, very favorable interest rate along with that term. There are some covenants, however, regarding tangible net worth and some other metrics that are accounting and financial based that you have to meet. But you can't really, I mean, you can say what you want, but you can't say one loan is better than another. Every project has its own DNA. You have to be able to determine what is the best lending facility for this scenario. It's like going to your doctor. He's not going to give you a bacterial injection if you have a virus. Just,
We hope.
yeah, it's ludicrous.
Okay, I've got another question here. What's the best way to set up the draw when you don't take a salary? And I assume this is to make your balance sheet look the best, to make yourself attractive for lending. Can you guys speak to that at all?
Yeah, my comment, then I'll let Rich chime in as a entrepreneur, is get with your CPA.
Yep. These are areas that have more to do with tax issues and strategies along those lines. And I think either way, if you have the right CPA, you're going to be able to say, this is what I benefited from the business by. And that's part of your story. That's where you'll show it in your projections and your historical information and your taxes. And I think it's just what's right for you and your business. But Bob, could you think of any downturns of doing it one way over the other?
Well, not really a downturn or downside, but I'll tell you what, if you don't put it in there, the bank's going to put it in there for you, because what they're going to do, and this is knowledge is power. I think we mentioned that yesterday. The bank's going to, if you don't show that, the bank's going to take your credit report and they're going to use their metrics and determine what your personal load is. And they're going to multiply that by a factor and they're going to insert that into their projections. So if you don't put it in there, they will.
And sometimes you don't do it out of ignorance. And that's where something like our template or a conversation with us at some time can help you end up losing what looks so good because suddenly the bank sees you playing takeaway with what they actually see in front of them.
And the bank knows more than you do because they've done hundreds of loans like yours. So they know the drill. And there's not an entrepreneur out there who is just running a business to make sales and not taking any sort of money out of it.
And the other thing is, don't hesitate to ask your loan officer. Don't hesitate to say, this is what we're doing. How would you like us to present it? You want to show trust and credibility and transparency through the whole process and beyond, because you're going to go back to the well and you're going to want more money, and banks want you to come back to the well. But if you do that, you darn sure better be able to show that you walked your talk, and if there was an issue, what it was and how you dealt with it. Don't
be afraid of your banker.
Actually, that ties into our next question, which is someone mentioned that they go in to do their presentation and they find themselves getting a little bit tongue-tied or feeling a little bit overwhelmed. What's the best way to handle yourself when you walk in and you talk with a bank?
Can I jump in on that first? I rarely ask a client to come in alone. I ask a client to come in with their top financial person, maybe their marketing person, and each person takes a piece of the presentation. And we were just on a presentation with a client a couple weeks ago and had a terrific financial guy on the call. And the way we prepped John was saying, when they ask you that question, to say, Jay, and then Jay pops in with the answer. Go in there with a team so you take the heat off of you. Other thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a different kind of guy. I like to fight. So I go in there all pumped up and ready to go and ready to go for battle, because I've been on the other side of the table where I've been presenting loans for clients, and I have 15 executive VPs throwing questions and rocks and stones at me, and I've endured that. So I'm not saying be arrogant, but be confident. And if you find yourself getting nervous or tongue-tied, do something humorous. Break it up. It's going to throw the loan officer off kilter, and it'll be a quick reset.
Yeah.
And I'd like to throw in one more point that I have seen both Bob and Rich use to great effect, and that is turning and putting the bank on the hot seat a little bit, and instead of saying, am I good for you, say, why are you good for me? I think taking back a little bit of that power is a really good point to make. Gentlemen, we are getting close to the end, but there are a couple more questions. This is a chance to talk a little about yourselves. We've had several people ask a little bit more about the Capital Masters and how you guys help people. So can you explain just a quick bit about what Capital Masters does for clients that ask for assistance with loans and loan packages?
Speaking of throwing a softball at us, what we do is we will take a look at your business. We'll look at your financials. We'll look at where you are, the trends, the opportunity, the industry, and we'll first and foremost say whether we believe you have a bankable loan. And if you have a bankable loan and you want us to take you through the whole process, we'll work with people like Andrea to write a complete, compelling, thorough narrative, and Bob will make sure that we've dotted our I's and crossed the T's on the financial side, and then we'll find you the right banks to talk to and take you through the process to take it home. What did I miss, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the most important thing is we are not brokers. We are full consultants, and we are working on your behalf to put you in a better light to get your package through at a bank. So we're also looking at your strategic processes, your business plan, your projections. As I said earlier, we're not paper shuffling and throwing spaghetti on a wall. So know that it's going to be totally professional. And the bankers seem to like it, and they know both of us. So there's a bit of reputation there to go along with the work.
So I want to add two things to that. One is there's no way you can go through our process without being more savvy about your business, without being able to use this business plan to recruit, to show to stakeholders. You won't show them everything, to share with your team on where you're going, to reflect on what you've accomplished and what you want to do. And we actually put ourselves in the package as advisors. I'm the strategic advisor, and Bob is the treasury officer or overseeing the financial side, and that helps add credibility.
And we are running out of time here at the end. I do want to thank everyone again for joining us today, and thank Hello Alice for the opportunity to collaborate on assisting with their community. And I wanted to remind everyone, if we didn't answer your questions, we will follow up with personal answers. And in addition, our website, thecapitalmasters.com, has some great freebies for you. We do monthly webinars and Q&As. We advertise the most recent one right on the page. We have got some free downloads for you to check out, lists of negotiable items, how do you view your finance department. Most importantly, a really key one, our financial glossary. It's free and you'll feel a lot more confident talking to banks if you're well versed in the terms. Watch your email for the link to today's session. And again, please feel free to reach out to us on capitalmasters.com.
I just want to add one more thing, but I can't. Oh, we're still on? Yes? No?
Go ahead, Rich.
Okay. You see 4 things. By October 1st, we will have at least 12 important freebies for you. Please feel free to go there once, to come back, to connect with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, fully signed blow-up picture of Rich is not included, however.
Well, I can be bought.
Thank you again, and we hope this has been incredibly helpful to you in your entrepreneurial pursuits.
Live long and prosper.